Welcome back to the intro of the campaign setting videos. We're going to dive into some more of what's going on in my brain, and then Carmichael's going to edit it, hopefully, into coherent thought.
I feel like a key thing to a world is a calendar, or else no one can keep track of anything. Have you created a calendar with days and weeks and stuff?
Yes, I have. That's the thing with the campaign. It's like, oh, well, how many hours are in a day?
Yeah.
How many days are in a week? How many days are in a year?
How many weeks are in a year?
Yeah, it's like, how long does it take the planet to travel around its prime sun, if it has one? And you got to think of it, well, is it a lunar calendar? Is it a solar calendar? How many days is it? There's lots of questions you can ask, and you can dive into the history of calendar making on Earth.
Yep.
It's fascinating. That's a whole day's worth of research that I found myself in. You don't have, if you make your own campaign setting, you don't have to do this.
No.
You can just say, it's spring, whatever, and just like play your game. If it's overwhelming and you're making your own, don't worry about a calendar. Don't worry about it. But because we're doing a TV show or we're doing an internet show and
Jared goes extra.
Questions could come up. And I needed to ground it into reality, so I went ahead and did it. So it's 7-day weeks,
okay,
30-day months.
It's pretty
right?
easy.
Is that how I did it?
It's pretty easy so far.
13 months, a 7-day fixed calendar system. For those who know what about calendar jargon, 7-day fixed. Okay. So there's 4 weeks, 7 days
per month,
and there's 13 months. And then there's also some extra holidays thrown in. Old Roman calendars had holidays that weren't days that were scheduled. It wasn't a Monday or a Tuesday. Right. It was like today is the feast day, and then if yesterday was Monday, tomorrow is Tuesday. But right now we're in this feast day, which isn't on the calendar. And there's a lot of that because they're really wonky about things in ancient Rome. But I kind of like that idea because we have leap days in our modern calendar to make up for the quarter of a day that it's 365 and a quarter days to go around. Mm-hmm. Let's say there's one of those. So there's an extra day every year that's New Year's. And then there's also some other holidays. That's a solar lunar calendar. The solstice and the equinox are holidays, mm-hmm. and people are very focused on those days, 7 days a week. And then you gotta think, what are the names of the days?
Yeah.
So,
because you told me something interesting about Earth Day weeks.
Yeah, on Earth in the modern calendar.
Yeah, about the days.
Yeah, so Thursday is Thor's day. Literal Thor, the god of thunder, is Thursday. It's where we get the name Thursday. And Fridays for Freya is Freya's day. So it's all, that's carried over. That's carried over. And Wednesday used to be called Odin's Day. And
where did Wednes come from?
So I'm not quite sure where Wednesday comes from, but I know that in American Gods by Neil Gaiman, Odin's avatar calls himself Mr. Wednesday. And that's a reference to that.
Okay.
So Sunday, let's just make it Sunday. For the sun. And then if the first day is the sun's day, then let's do Moon's Day, which might actually be what Sunday and Monday might actually be. Monday might be Moon's Day. I might be making that up, but that could be true. Earth Day, Earth meaning Earth meaning soil, Earth, the ground. King's Day, Queen's Day, People's Day. And
People's Day would be Friday.
Friday, yeah. People's Day is Friday, and then God's Day, Saturday. I imagine religious observance will be happening on Saturday if they don't happen every day. Depends on what part of the world you're in and who you worship. I made constellation names.
You made constellations?
So the whole calendar thing, it's like, well, what do we name months after? It's where our astrological calendar kind of comes from, even though it's modern astrology, which is bullshit, has already messed up because, we move through space and time and things change, and so constellations aren't lined up anymore. So I was like, okay, well, let's do that. Let's have it be constellation based. I'm like, well, I can't just use the constellations. It's its own planet. So then you got to make constellations. Months. Okay, so January is Centaur, and then essentially February would be Orus. There's Nanar, Nyx, Yacht, Trunka, Hano, Yalma, Roar, Windy, Vanya, Loki, and Erica. So there's 13 months. I have reasons for why they're named that. And then there's seasons. And so I decided to keep it easy.
Okay, yeah.
Let's do 4 seasons. Because you could be like Game of Thrones, where seasons
Well, that
aren't.
means one season is 1 month longer.
The way, essentially, it's, the seasons still last the same amount of time because the planet still takes the same amount of time to come around. So the seasons aren't going to...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The calendar, yeah.
You're just trying to tell a good story.
Yeah. I'm just trying to set the world... I'm giving the world rules with which to play it. In this world, light, dark, and shadow play a large cultural significance.
Okay.
Light, dark, and shadow are three of the elder gods, essentially. And the seasons, I was like, okay, well, there's... Light, dark, and shadow are 3, but there's 4 seasons. So a clever solution was to, and it works with the nature of shadow, is to split shadow into 2 different seasons, essentially.
Okay.
So there's the season of darkness.
Okay.
So you got dark, which is winter,
Yep.
which makes sense if particularly you're on the northern hemisphere of the continent.
Yeah.
And then there's shadow waning. So the moon wanes and waxes. Right? So
Okay. I've never heard this.
Oh yeah. When the moon is going from full to new, where it would disappear, it's getting smaller.
Yeah.
That's called waning. And then when the moon is going from noon to full, it's waxing.
I love it.
Okay. So shadow waning is spring because darkness is leaving, shadow is waning.
Yep.
It's getting brighter. So you're coming into light. So spring is shadow waning, and then there's the season of light, which is summer. And then shadow waxing is fall, which leads into the season of darkness, which is winter. So
That's cool.
So I split them. I'm very proud of it. Yes. Yeah, the big holidays: the vernal equinox, midsummer, the autumnal equinox, and the winter solstice. Midsummer is the summer solstice. Okay. The longest day, the shortest day, and the 2 days where it's perfectly aligned, just like here.
I have a question.
Yes.
What day, date, month, and part of the year, and what year is the first day of the campaign?
Okay. This is a good question, and I made it simple. So if you have a world that's been flooded, this is a post-diluvian calendar. So you would start the year after the waters receded.
Yeah.
And so that's when they started the calendar. And we're starting 1,000 years. The day... I guess the campaign is probably starting the day before, so it's like the end of the year.
So it'd be in darkness. So
it's going to be, actually, that's a good point because I kind of base this on a regular calendar. The calendar should start. I want it to be spring. So I think the beginning of the year is actually going to be Ninar, and I need to reshift this. See, there's always changes.
It could disconnect to seasons.
It could disconnect to the season. So it's the 5th day of the 3rd month, but it's the first day of the new year.
Yeah.
Because why does January 1st need to be the new year?
It doesn't.
Yeah, January 1st doesn't need to be New Year's Day.
We created that.
Yeah. So that's just an abstraction. So yeah, I can keep the calendar this way and just have the New Year's Day. The year starts on like the 5th of some month.
Of Nanar.
I have to now figure out if New Year's Day is the beginning of the calendar year or if the new year actually happens post-diluvian reckoning of the calendar.
And you need to figure this out before session 1.
That's okay. I got a couple days. As you can see, with a campaign setting, you can go in as deep or as light as you want.
Yeah.
You can take Exandria, Matt Mercer's campaign setting that he created for Critical Role. They started in Pathfinder in Galarian.
Yep.
And then when they moved from the Pathfinder system into 5e, he decided to create his own world.
Right.
Which, particularly for the show, makes a lot of sense. You're not infringing on IP. The one Pike was still a cleric of Sarenrae, even though Sarenrae technically is a Pathfinder god. He just brought her over. It's totally fine. On that vein, for Pantheon, there's lots of gods in D&D. Mm-hmm. There's hundreds. There's literally hundreds you can choose from. What Matt Mercer did and what I'm doing is taking the Dawn War Pantheon, which was created for 4th edition D&D.
Okay.
5e has brought them back as an optional Pantheon. And it kind of like cherry-picked cool gods from across multiple campaign settings, official campaign settings, and put them all together. And you can make all the gods you want, right? You can make your own gods, but you got to think, how do they worship? What's their alignment? How do those gods interact with the world? Do those gods interact with the world? There's a lot. And so I was like, you know what? I'm familiar with the Dawn War Pantheon. It's a nice, like, cohesive set. And I did create a few of my own. I was like, I'm going to play with the Dawn War Pantheon, because if Refuge exists in a multiverse, then those gods just came with people to the planet. Right. So I was like, oh, I can take these traditional D&D gods, we can still use what has been created before, and then just put a twist on it.
And it's interesting that you found a way in the story to incorporate all this knowledge back into it versus I'm just making it so. Yeah, and it helps just as when you're creating a campaign, it's a huge burden. Like if you're really into deities, that could be your thing that you really want to do in your campaign. My questions on religion for the campaign, I think, come from the fact that these gods aren't local. They didn't start here, they've come here. And there are some local gods, but it's like, what does that mean? I think those questions are more interesting than creating a pantheon. I like your question about if gods do exist.
Right.
It's a fact. We know that these beings exist. Should we worship them?
Right.
If so, why?
I mean, I would ask everyone to do this in real life. You don't need faith in D&D. Religious belief in real life is based on faith, regardless of fact, or maybe even in the face of lack of any evidence, people believe in their gods.
Right.
Because it's about faith. And that's why I think when people want to prove that God is real or this or that, and that's they've missed the point. Like, the point of religion in real life isn't about proving that your God is real. It's that in spite of it all, you believe in it, and that faith can give you strength. I don't have particular faith in a deity, but I still believe in myself. I believe in my friends. I believe in the goodness of people in real life. And so I have faith in that, regardless of evidence of if people are good. Yeah. I believe that people are good. I think bringing those questions into a D&D world is really interesting, because the gods are real. There is power. People are healed. There's destruction. They show up and do things. That you don't have to have faith in your god because they exist. You know they exist. You might have even talked to them or heard from them or most likely seen their power expressed into the material plane. Right. So what does that mean for worship? That to me brings the question like, well, I know that the American military is powerful. I'm not worshiping the military. Is that the same analog here, where it's like, well, we know these gods have power, so we little people are going to bow down and worship on them for a little bit of their favor. Right. And is that worthy? And it's also, can lead to afterlife is real. You can resurrect people from the dead. You can speak to the dead. You can even maybe commune with people who are in an afterlife. So there is an afterlife. So do you tie in with a particular god because you want that particular flavor of afterlife? There's lots of questions you can ask yourself with D&D deities, and I find that very interesting. So I don't know how to weave that into the campaign, but we'll see if that gets woven in, those questions.
One of the interesting things in Clash of Titans, both in the original and the remake, I really like this interpretation of gods, which is they are a being that is more powerful than us, but they require our worship to maintain their power. Right. And I always thought that was very interesting. Yeah. Like, that is their life force, our worship.
American Gods goes into that. Discworld, Terry Pratchett goes into that with small gods. That I think that's a very excellent thing to think about and to go into. And it's particularly since most of these gods aren't necessarily local. They're not from here. So that way it's like, how are these gods expressed in my campaign? Something that I've been working on for, how many months have we been working on this now? Like 5 months?
Yeah,
while full-time employed, while working and doing other things. and
which we are
and
still
I
doing.
feel like I'm just scratching the surface. You know, there's so much, and I'm hoping that playing is also how you develop your world. And players can help create with their backstories, particularly in a brand fresh new world. They can be like, oh, can I be from somewhere over here? And I go, no, that's too far. How about over here? Great, yes. It's kind of like this. This is my idea of what the area is like. Okay, cool. I'll make my town out of that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Great. And then that can be brought into the game. That can add to the world as a whole, and it's a burden lifted. It's a burden lifted from my shoulders on what all I'm creating. Now it's still within the world I've set up, and I've been like, no, not this detail doesn't work, but these details do, and then we can make it happen, and that's awesome. Like that creative collaboration is something that D&D offers that other things do not.
Is that similar to what happened with my overworking my dwarf?
Yeah. So in our home game, Carmichael's dwarf has a 37-page backstory, and part of that was creating a banking system, which he was like, I think I went too far. Yeah. Yeah, that's a bit much. Work with your DM, ask your DM questions. All right, well, thanks so much for watching this particular info dump of the world I've been creating in my brain.
It's a big one. It's definitely a lot.
And there's still so much more I need to do.
I was not expecting this much.
You're welcome.
If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. We're going to start our campaign on July 17th.
And if you like this content and want to support us, you can check out our Patreon.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next one.